Hi, everybody, and welcome to another session of First Wednesdays with the Music Administration Collaborative with Kamphuis, Division of Education. I'm Rick Ganelli, the Director of Music Administration Outreach, and we want to welcome you to another great session. We have a great information, great lineup of people for you. Before we do, I want you to keep Gary Markham in your thoughts and prayers. Gary's been down and out a little bit here the last couple of weeks, but he's on the mend, and we want to wish him all well. Obviously, he can't be here with us tonight, but hopefully he'll be joining us in the future. So I want to introduce first our Managing Director of the Division of Education, Mike Kamphuis. Mike has sort of taken it under his wing to be the ESSER expert for Kamphuis. He has really been diving deep into this and staying abreast of everything that's going on, including finding some really great examples and resources for you. You know, we hear all the time, yeah, we know there's that money available, but we're being told we can't do this, this, and that. What we're finding out is that sometimes you're not getting all the truth of the matter. So we have some fine arts people here that will tell you exactly what they were able to do with the funds that they secured. We're also hearing in some places that, well, ESSER's kind of winding down and not much is going on. All the money's been given out, but at the same time, we're hearing, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I think it just bears, the time to review it one more time, and hopefully everybody can get a little piece of that pie before the money does run out or gets assigned to other places. So with all that being said, Mr. Mike Kamphuis, it is all yours.
Thank you, Rick, and good evening, everyone from across the country. Great to be with you all. To Rick's point, with the ESSER funding, with the ESSER funding, it is still available. It is still out there. We're seeing a lot of districts do extensions with their district funding right now. The Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, as most of you know, began March of 2020 and is in 3 different phases of funding. And we're currently looking at the 3rd phase of ESSER funding that's being released to many schools across the country right now. I have 3 folks with me this evening as part of our discussion that have had some success with ESSER funding and other government funding as well. Our 3 guests this evening are James Doherty. He is the Arts Education and Digital Learning Specialist for Davidson County Schools in Lexington, North Carolina. The second guest I'll have on this evening is Christopher Little. Chris is the Director of Bands for Jim Hill High School, as well as the Assistant Fine Arts Coordinator for Jackson Public School District in Jackson, Mississippi. And our third guest will be Orrin Landis, the Director of Bands for American Fork High School in American Fork, Utah. I'd like to first thank the 3 panelists for being here this evening and sharing their success stories. A couple important things to note. There's going to be some documentation shared this evening that will be posted in our replays on the Thinkific platform. So make sure you catch the replays. All the documents you see shown this evening will be in there. And also, if you have questions as we go along, please do put them in the chat. Mr. Ganelli and our guru behind the scenes, Beth Horton, will be monitoring the chat and stopping us along the way for any questions. And then we'll all get together at the end too, just to make sure we don't leave any stone unturned. So with that, I'd like to bring up with me James Doherty, Arts Education Digital Learning Specialist at Davidson County Schools. James, thanks so much for joining us today.
Very happy to be here. Thank you so much, Mike.
So I had the pleasure of speaking with James a few weeks ago, and you and I were connecting on ESSER and things that were happening in your district. And you've had some pretty interesting things happening there. I guess for our audience this evening, start off by kind of encapsulating your district, the size of it, just an overview, demographics, arts education in the district. What does that look like?
Sure. Davidson County Schools is in the middle of North Carolina, sort of halfway between Charlotte and the Winston-Salem, Greensboro area. Our school district would be considered more of a rural district. We have right around 18,000 students in the district. There are 36 schools, 75 arts educators, and we cover visual art, music, band, choir, and theater. We don't have any strings programs in our district, and we don't have any dance programs in the district, but we cover all the other areas. And that's kind of the oversize. Although I did do some research today and saw that we've lost 683 students from last year to this year. And I'm sure that's in a lot of school districts are similar to homeschool and that kind of thing. But so we're in an ever-changing situation about size of schools.
So thanks for sharing that. So when did you first hear about ESSER funding? When did that first kind of come on your radar?
Well, for me, I've been involved for probably 7 years now through work with NAFME and NCMEA in Title IV particularly, and that funding stream. So I learned through my work with NAFME and the great work they do with advocacy about these funds. I knew they were on the radar and what was coming down the way with them. So I immediately started thinking about ways that ESSER was similar to Title IV and ways that it was dissimilar. There are some obvious things that it's dissimilar because of the pandemic and the nature of how it originated. But I tried to apply things that I knew from Title IV to this, and some of those things worked well, and some of the things didn't work as well because of how fast districts had to put together budgets and requests for ESSER. I think really the money came at school districts faster than they had a plan for how to manage it or deal with it. I'd say this is probably the most amount of money school districts have ever received in anyone's memory. So that's some of the big differences in those two things.
Yeah, from what I understand with the policymakers I've talked to in the past, it's about 8 times the level of Title I funding that's normally received in education, which is a pretty big number. So what was your district's approach to ESSER funding with, having all this money coming? How did you guys get into it?
Well, in our district, and again, to tie back to Title IV a little bit, we were doing pretty well with supporting arts programs with Title IV because there's 3 buckets in Title IV. There's well-rounded, safe and healthy schools and technology. Some districts have put a majority, well, I won't say a majority because the law specifies how much of a percentage you can use in each area. Some districts have used more money in other buckets, so to speak, than others. But when the conversation came about from the district leadership to ask different curriculum areas and different parts of the school district, what are your needs? What needs to go in? For us at the time when we had the biggest conversations last summer and last spring, obviously coming back from a blended students in our district last year were in school 2 days a week at home 3, and then another cohort of students was in 2 and at home 3. So for me, my main concern was PPE and protecting the students when we came back. So that was one of the big requests for me, and making sure that we were not sharing instruments and things like that, background instruments for band and any other needs we had musically. And knowing that our singers were going to need some protection too. That's a little different than the instrumentalists with the kind of the masking they needed. But again, we kind of bridged from Title IV. So at the beginning of last year, we did a fairly large purchase through Consumer actually with instruments in the program that you had. So we kind of met some of the instrument needs. So a lot of our focus was on PPE this year. I won't say that all districts did that, but I would just kind of add to the conversation that there was not a whole lot of things. I was expecting the district to say, you need to request this and this and this and this. But when the paperwork had to go to the State Department, it was more of, okay, we're going to make a general category and we'll flesh out specifics later. And I think that's kind of important to note because a lot of school districts were that way, where they didn't exactly have everything mapped out, but they had some ideas and generalizations. And you brought a great point up for everybody on the call today, that this third round of ESSER money that's coming up, this is a great time to be talking about it because plans pretty much need to be in place by the spring to do your requests. So this is the perfect time where, some directors, some art supervisors may have gone to district officials and said, well, we just finished spending all that money. Well, there's another round coming up, and now is the early bird time to get in place to do this last round. So, for me, I don't have specific things that we did other than PPE right now, but even I still can make some more requests. So I'm working on that as we speak.
Well, and that's an important point for everybody too that you leaned on. And I believe until September 2024, this funding is going to keep going. It's just a matter of making sure you're part of the planning process now, which is important for everyone to understand. Now, from your planning process, you guys had a pretty succinct plan that you established to go about the ESSER funding. So, talk about how that went, the documentation that you had to go through, and kind of walk us through just to give folks some advice on how to approach it.
Okay. Well, I think the big thing people really, well, I won't say people in general, but a lot of folks didn't think about the fact that ESSER funding is federal funding, and it all has accountability, and every state has to be accountable for this money, how they spent it. And on the front end, it was more of how are we going to do it? But our district took a little bit more of a conservative approach in that we've got to handle this just like we do Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, which means that we need to have some documentation for a needs assessment. We need to understand what we need and have that documented, because at some point you'll have to come back around and speak to how did you gather the information about what you bought? Were other stakeholders involved? And then what did you do with it after you actually applied the money? So having some kind of needs assessment in place is important. And before we go to the next round to ask for money, it's important to even if you're your own person in your own band, if you identify your needs and have those on paper and have documentation, last year we had this number of children, this year we have this number of children, or I project based on numbers, we have 13 bass clarinets, but we only have 3 in the building. Having that documentation and data is really important, and getting a multiple number of stakeholders involved in either doing some kind of survey or bring them to the table and document that. So that's the big thing, is documenting and writing down what you're doing so that you can put it in, because every school district's going to have to document somewhere in a system. How do you plan to use the money? How are you going to measure what your money produced or where it grew? And then, then that's your summary. So having some kind of needs assessment.
And that assessment, obviously, we'll have that available for everyone to take a look at as well in the replay. In regards to the assessment, you and I talked about, and I just want to bring this up to kind of end cap this a little bit, but the results of what ESSER funding does for the students in the afterthought. So, I think you and I were talking about, what's the impact of this, and are we prepared to explain that later on? Would you mind just talking a bit about that as well?
It's extremely important to articulate the impact for students, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Anytime you're working with federal money, local community and state federal leaders, they want to know how it impacts students. And the document that's being shared was actually the one we created for Title IV, but it can be used for ESSER or any other kinds of funding. But we've done a lot of collection of success stories where teachers, I would, say I actually did a Google form with them. I said, I want you to talk about what you did with your money, share stories, and even talk about it from the student perspective, collecting pictures. The last time that we were able to be in Washington with NAFME, I took a 14-page document that had stories, paragraph after paragraph, from our teachers about how the federal funding helped them in their classrooms. And it was amazing that the responses we got from congressional leaders in Washington to read from their districts. This is not money that was sent to a state and where did it go? I mean, Johnny now doesn't have to share a tuba with Sam. It's real world stuff, and that means a lot. I would also throw in the side too that I use social media a lot, particularly Twitter, and not Facebook for this as much, but I use Twitter a lot because I like to tag county commissioners, school board members, administrators. These things are made possible because of your work in supporting arts and federal funding, those kind of things. And I think that makes a big difference.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, James, I appreciate you sharing this great information this evening. The advocacy work that you guys are doing is phenomenal. Thank you for sharing all this great information to everyone this evening. And please stay on with us. We'll invite you back later on this evening as well with our other panelists to answer any other questions from everyone else. And if anyone else has any questions for James that you'd like to drop in the chat, obviously feel free while we move to our next guest this evening, who is Mr. Christopher Little. Christopher, good to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
So Jackson, Mississippi, where you were saying earlier, the weather is kind of different every day. So
the weather is different. We have a Hall of Famer right up the street in Coach Prime and Deion Sanders. I Love, home of the Sonic Boom of the South. We have a lot of great things going on in Jackson.
That's amazing. Well, you're doing some great things for Jackson Public Schools down there. So if you don't mind, tell us a bit about Jackson Public Schools. What is that district like? And just give us some context here.
Okay. Jackson Public Schools is the second largest school district in Mississippi. We serve nearly 21,000 scholars. We represent more than 80% of the school-age children here in Jackson. And we're the state's only urban municipality pretty much that's serving public education. Jackson, Mississippi itself has about 170,000 residents. We take up about 104 square miles. There are 7 high schools, 10 middle schools, 31 elementary schools, and 4 special program schools. We have about 50 school sites in our district. And we're divided up into 7 feeder patterns. We do have 4 advanced programs. We have a Montessori program. We have an International Baccalaureate program in our elementary, middle, and high school division. We have this program called the APAC program, which is an academic and performing arts complex where our gifted and talented students attend. We also have a strings program. We're going into some of the music programs. We have band, we have choir, we have elementary music, we have dance, we have theater, we even have general music, and we even offer dual enrollment music appreciation for our senior students trying to get ahead before they graduate. So we have a pretty comprehensive program here at Jackson Public Schools.
That's amazing, impacting the lives of many kids there. In regards to the ESSER funding, so when did you first catch a wind of ESSER funding, and how did Jackson Public Schools get involved with that process?
Well, I was actually at a town hall meeting at one of the community centers, and one of the officials from the governor's office actually attended this meeting, and he talked about ESSER. I didn't know what he was talking about at first, so I had to go home and do some research. And actually, after meeting, I was able to schedule a meeting with this particular official. He works directly in the governor's office, and he kept making mention of the term learning loss. And he said, "Look, man, if you want to get ahead and get your students some instruments and get the program together," because at first it started off almost as a Jim Hill thing, just a school thing, and I saw that this could be much larger than that. We got the chance now to impact many lives. So the biggest thing was just getting the administrators on board here in our district. And to do that, I had to find that connective tissue between the arts and those academic core classes. As we all know, administrators are really, they're really tied into finding success in those academic classes. We're all familiar with standardized testing and things of that nature. So my mission was to show how the arts can help you do that better at your school. And of course, we all know, we read the research, as music educators, we're familiar with that. But I think sometimes the hardest part is actually sitting down, putting it on a sheet of paper or email and communicating those thoughts to our administrators. So that was the first thing that I did. Me with a team of other band directors, other colleagues, other teachers and professionals in those other mediums as far as the arts, we sat down, we put together a comprehensive arts proposal for our district. Like I said, we have all those programs, but it lacked some type of foundational structure. So we wanted to make sure that we're really staying true to our district's mission and core values, which And I like to share some of those with you if you don't mind.
Not at all.
So some of our core values here at Jackson Public Schools include equity, excellence, growth mindset, relationships, relevance, and positive and respectful culture. And the word that we really stuck to was equity, just providing equitable access to enjoyable educational experiences for our students. Unfortunately, our district, we hadn't made a true commitment to arts education as far as the resources. We have the classes in place, but the resources in order for those kids to really do well, we had to go back and redevelop that plan. So this was an opportunity through ESSER to provide that equitable access. So kids don't have to share instruments. We've, getting some new things in, just rebranding the arts and music education in our district.
That's amazing. So as far as the ESSER funding, what pieces did that touch? So you said instruments. Is it also impacting resources needed, like teachers, things of that extent, or what pieces of is ESSER impacting as a whole?
Well, right now, it's set up in our district. We're going to implement 3 stages of ESSER funding in our district. And that first stage is just getting the necessary equipment, necessary resources for our scholars. We felt like that was the biggest need right now. And then that second phase is going to look into adding the personnel, making sure the bodies are in place. Right now, we have an arts program at all 52 sites in our district. So we have a multitude of teachers, but in some instances, we may need that assistant band director or that orchestral teacher or things of that nature, just like any other district. So that's going to be the second phase. And then that third phase is going to be an evaluation piece where we go back and we refine some of the things that we may have done or relook at some of the things that we didn't do and implement those things.
What is the expected outcome for the district? You have this big plan put together. What's the 3 to 5 year outlook?
Well, the big picture is to move our district to an A district or a star district. And we're going to use the arts as a tool to do that. As you know, the best kids in most buildings are the band students or those students involved in arts or music education. And we want to increase the number of students substantially who participate in our programs. We're looking to double the size of our band, our choir programs. We're looking at even starting multiple orchestral programs. That's something our city has lost, but we're looking at trying to recapture that. Also, we're growing in the aspect of theater, graphic arts, dance. We're just going to expand what we're doing. And the big picture, like I said, is just really getting more kids involved in co-curricular, as I like to say, activities. I'm not a big fan of the word extracurricular, but yeah, in co-curricular activities.
No, that's wonderful. And just a reminder for us all too, music and arts is part of a well-rounded education as signed by Barack Obama in December 2015. So that's important for all of us just to remember that music and arts is part of a well-rounded education as defined by the federal government. Well, I mean, you guys tremendously rolled up your sleeves in support of arts education. So for others that are investigating, maybe involved in it or wanting to get into ESSER funding more, what advice would you give to others that are, just looking at how do I get into this? How do I go for it?
Don't give up. Don't take no for an answer. One thing that I do whenever I bring a problem to my administration, I always try to bring a solution as well. So when you go to your administration, try to have your documents in order, try to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and try to find alternative solutions. We have to remember that we're here for the kids, and it sounds cliches at times, but sometimes, they say that, but they forget about the band students, the choir students, or in most cases, a lot of emphasis is put into athletics. we have to show that we're just as important, if not more important, than some of those core academic and those other co-curricular activities. Don't take no for an answer.
I love it. No, that's absolutely it. And the advocacy you all are doing as a team is phenomenal in Jackson. And I just greatly look forward to seeing the progress that you all are going to make with the district in the immediate future and years to come. So thank you for all your efforts. And we'll have you back on at the end as well with Mr. Doherty and Mr. Landis as well. But Christopher, thank you so much for the time and sharing your story on Jackson Public Schools today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
So next up, we have Orrin Landis, legendary American Fork High School marching band. I've seen them at Grand Nationals and quite the program there. Orrin is the director of bands of American Fork High School and has a wonderful ESSER story that I was just amazed at what they were able to do for their district in pretty short order. And Orrin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me on here. It's a real pleasure.
And hopefully I'm not keeping you from rehearsal or anything at the moment. I see your
rehearsal. It starts in 30 minutes.
So we got some time here. Well, thanks for joining us. So just give everyone a kind of a narrative of your district demographic size and what we're looking at for your area.
Sure. So we have 10 high schools in our district, 14 junior highs. So you can kind of guess at how many elementary schools we have. So it's a fairly sizable district. It covers the entire northern half of Utah County, which is, if you've ever heard of Provo, some would say that we're kind of a suburb of Provo. We're about 35 to 40 minutes south of downtown Salt Lake. So we're kind of, wedged in between these two metropolises, and the demographic is pretty standard. And I think that the district size is, well, I mean, it's a big district.
yeah, sure. And this is Alpine District, correct?
Correct, Alpine District.
Yeah.
You.
Got it. So with ESSER funding, explain your situation there. How did you come across ESSER funding and how did you guys get involved with that process?
Sure. So we're lucky enough to have Dr. Tim come out every summer to do some leadership training with the schools in the area. And last year obviously was kind of a bust, unfortunately, but this year it worked out really well that he could come out. And he always does something with the directors. So he invited all the directors in, and we were talking with them and, learning at the feet of a giant. And he was telling us about ESSER funding. And we had previously spoken to the district fine arts coordinator about it. And they just said that everything was allocated and earmarked, and that, it was kind of done. And so when I heard Dr. Tim telling us about it, we thought, well, I'm going to look into it just a little bit more and see if that's really the case. So he gave me your number, Mike. And so we talked over the phone, and you gave me some good resources. And then I reached out to our school board rep, which happens to be an ex-band parent. So they put me in contact with somebody at the district office that in turn let me know that we had about 5 days to put together a proposal to try and get some money for ESSER. So I immediately reached out to all of the band directors in the district. Like I said, we have 14 junior highs and 10 high schools, and this was over the summer. So we had about 6 or 7 of us that got onto our meeting, and we essentially just hashed out a plan to try and put together a proposal for 4 days at that point to hopefully be able to get some funding. And so we all spread out, put everything, everybody wrote a section of it and then sent it to me, and I put everything together in an order and then sent it out to our person at the district. And lo and behold, a little while later, they let us know that every school was going to get $10,000. So it was it happened like a whirlwind, and the good times, they just kept rolling. So we were pretty excited. So.
Oh, that's amazing. So what was in your ESSER plan? I mean, you guys had a short amount of time to put it together. So what elements were involved?
So we kind of took the information that you could find about ESSER and like what it's funded for. So, we had things in there for cleaning instruments and repairing instruments. We talked about bringing additional people in to help with some remediation. So, we had a lot of students that may or may not have been in class from last year and might be falling behind. So we were trying to get some funding to hire some people to come in and do some private lesson, tutoring, or sectional work, things like that. And even just as far as purchasing new instruments and trying to figure out if, we could use some of the ESSER money to just purchase new instruments, mostly for students who are currently sharing instruments. We share tubas, and, that meant that, 4 kids were sharing the exact same tuba. Granted, they might have their own mouthpiece, but in times of COVID, is that really the most sanitary option? So anyway, so we had things like that included in it, and the district reviewed all of it. They did let us know a couple weeks ago, this is maybe new information for you, Mike, but they decided to allocate the entire 10,000 to cleaning and repairing of instruments to try and stick along more with it. So the nice thing is that the other points, they are basically just putting that back into the pile. So as the next round of funding comes through, the hope is that they'll allocate some more towards our proposal. So like maybe this time we can get some money allocated for that remediation or for purchasing of new instruments and things like that. So that is the hope.
What I was amazed with is such quick turnaround that happened. I mean, it was like, what, 2 to 3 weeks, you guys put a plan to almost implementation, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
So from your experience, what advice would you give others that are considering ESSER funding or looking at it and getting into it?
Well, I think the thing that I learned the most is that, especially being a band director, you just have to not take no for an answer. I think Mr. Little talked about that. It's like people are going to tell you no all the time, and your goal is to try and find that right person that can help you out. And we were lucky enough to have a former band parent in a area of some power that could figure out who we needed to really talk to in order to get this ball moving. So
never accept a no. How do we turn a no into a yes? I think that's something Dr. Tim has taught me for many, many years. So but greatly appreciate you guys rolling up the sleeves and doing what you did as well with ESSER funding. Between you and Mr. Doherty and Mr. Little, just 3 incredible stories. What I'd like to do is bring all 3 back on with me. One of the things that I didn't hit on earlier that I wanted to dive a little deeper on is Mr. Doherty, you had that North Carolina plan. If it's possible, Beth, I'd like to bring that up to share with everybody, because the state of North Carolina, they published this ESSER step-by-step plan that was pretty comprehensive. I'd like to share that with everybody just so we can see that, if we can just kind of scroll through it. And James, you mind just kind of talking through this as to what this is and what we're looking at?
Absolutely. So this document is put together by the North Carolina Arts Education Leadership Coalition. And Beth, if you can go back to the first page, just so you can see that this is a partnership between the North Carolina ASCDA, the Bandmasters, Music Educators Association, Theater Conference, Arts Educators. I mean, it's all the groups represented at the table. And the president of Arts North Carolina, Nate McGackie, is really the brainchild of putting this together. But the very next page really says it all. And I'm glad that I forgot to mention this until now, and you brought it back up, because it ties so nicely into what Warren and Chris said. The number one most important thing that we can do now to prepare for this next round is understanding the law and knowing what can and cannot be spent with the money. So when you go to the table, as Dr. Tim would probably say, and you get a no, you can say, oh, but I read there's 15 types of spending, and I know that under this section you can do this, and under this section you can do this. So what Arts North Carolina did in conjunction with the Arts Ed Leadership Coalition is all 15 areas or buckets in ESSER have different allowances. So we put together, we as a group, to say examples of what you could ask for under each of those sections. And there's a few where arts probably don't fit, and so that's enumerated here too, so you wouldn't ask for the wrong place. But if you have an idea about something that you need after you complete a needs assessment, using a document like this would be very helpful, because not only could you ask for what you need, but you could go back and say, I believe this fits under part 11 or part 1. And, you know, that probably will blow the mind of most of the district office people who work in federal funding programs, because they really feel like nobody knows that information. But in truth, you can help them with that. And there are links here that have some other guidelines, and as well as some other helpful things that are put together. But we're really thankful for this document that the Arts Ed Leadership Coalition here in North Carolina put together. But I think it could be a great resource in helping anybody kind of navigate where your need fits in to one of those buckets. And I would say, and I talked about PPE quite a bit in my segment earlier, but I would just say, we're not limiting ESSER money to PPE, and it's important to remember that we do. Chris talked about learning loss a little bit, and you know that's a big conversation point right now, and not just instruments and not just learning loss or PPE. There's just so many things that can come in here. I know a lot of school districts out there are looking at making up number loss from students who were not involved in being in programs for several months. So maybe even some creative recruiting and things like that to regain numbers for the future. But I would check that document out, and I think that could be very helpful to anybody that might need it.
Absolutely. A lot of work went into that, and we're very appreciative. All of these resources that just help clarify the hundreds of pages that go into these laws and these bills, you know, just helps us cut through all that and get to the point. As we're kind of going through a few other things here with the panel, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I did want to share David Dubose in the chat, said our plan supported band, orchestra, and guitar equipment that the district normally supplements schools with to provide students with equipment for equity and opportunity. They have secured a $3.6 million in ESSER funding just for fine arts for the 3-year cycle. So congrats, David. That's an amazing story. And we'd love to share that story with folks as well, just so they can hear what's happening. So if anyone with us this evening as well has a story like James, like Christopher, like Orrin that they'd like to share, please reach out to us. One of the things that I'm blessed with as a team at Con Summers Division of Education, we've actually trained our ESMs and our sales engineers on ESSER funding to help schools with information to make sure it gets to folks appropriately. So for anyone either watching this live or on demand, you know, feel free to go to our ESSER landing page as well. You can make an appointment with us. We'll set up time. We'll arm you with all the appropriate information that you need to make it happen. And it's for what's right for your district and what ESSER funding can do to help your district. So we just want to make sure that in regards to music education, no one is left behind in that conversation. So use our resources if you feel like you need a helping hand, and we'll help connect some dots to get you some support. And if we can't help, we'll find some experts in the field, even higher than us, to help you out as well. With that, I don't know if it's possible. I'd like to bring Dr. Tim on for a second with us as well, because he's been doing a lot of keynotes. And to your point, Orrin, you guys got word from Dr. Tim himself in regards to ESSER funding. So I'd like to see, Tim, are you with us by chance? And
right. So Tim is here. Okay. I just need to allow him.
Oh, he's on the other side.
Yeah, he's here as our participant, but I can hit allow to talk. So Tim's mic is open and ready to go. And he's got to unmute himself though. And then he can also, I'm going to just promote him to panelist. Actually, I won't, just in case. He may not be prepared to be on screen.
I'm
But
good.
That's all right.
there he is. Do you want me to turn your camera on, Dr. Tim?
Whatever you want to do.
Oh, we want to see your sweet face. Here we go.
You're the best, Beth.
I just figured we could use some time with Tim here as we're wrapping up. Can you hear me okay, Tim?
I surely can. And
There he is.
yeah, congratulations to everybody. What great presentations. I mean, it just proves it can be done. And I think the common theme with all of it, and Mike, you've certainly highlighted this, is the fact that, you know, with Christopher and James Norton, all of them, it's persistence alone is omnipotent. You just stay on it. And if nothing else, sounds terrible, but we almost wear people down to go, hey, these are your kids. You know, if you want to invest in the leaders of tomorrow, we've got them lined up here for you. And I think for all, and congratulations to your three panelists who were able to couch the information and shape it in a way that it resonated with the people who are pulling the trigger. So, man, I learned a lot, and I can't say enough. And thanks, Mike, as always, you did a great job. And Beth for saving me here and getting. But to all of you, I think we have to give up giving up, because this is your money. And honestly, it goes to the kids, and those are the ones that we always have to take care of. So thanks.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for spreading the word for us, Tim, in regards to ESSER. I know you've been all over the country telling folks about it. So thank you for hopping in with us, my friend.
Thank you, buddy.
You bet. So
I like to add one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
And the most important thing that I think that no one has mentioned, whatever money your district doesn't spend, they have to give it back to the government. So they're looking for creative plans that support whatever your district's strategic plan is. You just have to sit down and put those things into some type of documentation. Because a lot of the time, you got to remember that administrators are not as versed in the terms associated with music education as you are. So you have to go and unpack whatever information is out there and put it in a format that's presentable to your administration, and make them see the light.
Absolutely. No, great point. And I'll just, one final thought before I pass it back to Mr. Ganelli, because I know we have some other things to wrap up with this evening. But, you know, with what the kids have gone through for the last 18 months, you know, I have a 12-year-old and 6-year-old myself, and it's just seeing the herky-jerkiness, you know, and people getting back into school now, which I know some states have been in school more than others, and it's different all across the country. But you know, I do think that music education, with the assistance of ESSER, can help get the kids back into a place of comfort, and you know, pardon the pun, but in harmony together. And it just creates a huge opportunity for us to get them back in a comfortable space in school with arts education, and obviously with all the other pieces of the curriculum. But I do think music, you know, and the arts, more than any other thing, just does so much for kids in regards to their day-to-day routine. And having been one of those band kids back in the day, that was the one that moved the timpani and hung out after school, you know, I know how it can have an impact on one. So thank you three for being here this evening and sharing your stories. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And all the information from each three of these stories is going to be shared for all of you to access. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ganelli, who led us off this evening. And thank you all for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, all four of you, for putting this together and sharing your successes. You know, what we know is that this money is mainly, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but mainly it's spent on stuff, you know, equipment, furniture, that kind of thing. But it can also be spent on staff and hiring additional staff members to do different things. So, you know, kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well. Christopher, I've got to admit something here. Back in May, one of our inside sales engineers, sent me your document and said, just a director in Mississippi did this, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. I'm going to get him to come on and speak to the music administrators about this. Well, thanks, Mike. You just took one of my whole sessions away. Amazing information, and congratulations to all of you. You know, as a former band director, former campus administrator, and former fine arts director, one other little thing that I want to add for everybody, and I'm primarily an educator, but this is going to sound like I've got my sales hat on because I've seen it on the inside. You know, we have to make sure that our upper level administrators or our financial people understand that the things that we use in our music programs, the things that we purchase, are no different than any other capital purchase that they make. Musical instruments, chairs, pianos, whatever, they don't have an infinite lifespan, right? So, you know, just like they replace cafeteria equipment and copy machines, we're not going to just continue to spend inordinate amounts of money repairing all these things. Sometimes I just don't think they get it. And I think, Christopher, you mentioned they don't understand the music end of things. So we have to tell them that sousaphones don't last forever. You know, that's why they're duct taped together in some places, right? So anyway, just another little bit of information to share. So thank you all again. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Next month, which is going to be on November 3rd, our first Wednesday, we're going to actually share some information about the new communities, rather new communities that we've created here at Conn-Selmer. And those communities, we have our marching arts community, we have our parent engagement community, we have our student leadership community, we of course have our music administration collaborative community, and we have our HBCU community. And those are all designed so that like-minded people that have the same kind of interest can come together every month, like we are doing here with our MAC community, and talk about things that pertain to those specific groups. So if you're not, our audience members, if you're not engaging in one of those communities, at least let your directors know if they're interested. We've got some of the best leading these communities. You know, the best educators in the country. You would know their names when you hear them, and they're going to be all coming on next month and give me just a little snippet of what their communities are doing and the different activities that they'll have going on a regular basis. I'm going to invite our back behind the scenes person, Beth, to come on, and she's going to talk to you about our new platform in Thinkific and what that's going to mean for us as well. Beth?
Oh, that was actually the perfect introduction, Rick, and I'll try and go quickly because I know you all are very busy people. But our communities are now all sort of housed in a library on Thinkific. You can access all of them from our Division of Education homepage. And in your email that goes out tomorrow evening with replay information, you'll get this link then as well. But if you go to the drop down, you can actually explore the homepage for all 5 of our communities. We're going to take a look at Music Administration Collaborative. So your homepage is here. If you are already attending Conn-Selmer events online, you most likely already have a Thinkific account. If not, it's just your name and email. We're not going to ask for anything else. You just click join the collaborative and it will redirect you here where you will either sign into your account or create a new account. So it looks like that. And then once you're in and you can see all of the different things that you might be enrolled in. The MAC group looks like this. In this video, we've got an introductory video. So if you're a little tech hesitant, you've got a quick video that will kind of show you how to explore everything. We've got a welcome video from the man, the myth, and the legend, Rick, as well. And then all of our additional resources, including registration links for the upcoming event, are here. You can see I need to update this. And then if you just drop this carrot down, you can actually go through, if you're like, man, I've been missing out on all of this, you can go through and catch some of these previous sessions as well. Back to School with Dr. Tim was super inspiring. Really loved advocacy efforts and the session with Scott on social emotional learning. And for any of your administrators who want you to get some professional development, we also have included professional development certificates for you. If you're going to spend an hour with us, we want to make sure that you're able to document that as well. So that's just a quick rundown on communities. Again, you're going to get
Good
a
evening,
link.
everybody. This is Gary Markham, and I'm along
Ooh,
with
Gary's
Rick and
talking loud. There we go. If you're going to get that replay link, those videos autoplay for you, so it's not super hard at all to access them. But you'll get the replay link, and then you'll also get a video to kind of step you through step by step. Again, if you're tech hesitant, it'll show you exactly how you go ahead and sign up. And if you have any problems accessing any of it, you can always email me streaming@conselmer.com, and I'll get you taken care of. I think that's it.
Thank you, Beth. And just a point of clarification, you can join as many of these communities that you want. There's no membership, so to speak. There's no cost involved. It's just come when you can. You're not required to be there every time. Come when you can, give your input, get what you need out of it, and we'll be good to go. So thank you all again. Oren's got a rehearsal in 9 minutes, so he's got time to hit the restroom and get a drink of water. Have a good rehearsal. And thank you again, Christopher and James, for sharing your success stories, and Mike for putting this together. We'll see you all next time.